Hi guys, and many thanks for joining. My name is Kat and I like to talk about crime investigations and missing people. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe below, hit that notification bell so you are the first one to know about any new videos I upload. Like and share the video. Thank you. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that I try to avoid the politics as much as possible, but because today I want to talk to you about Kate and Gerry Mccann, Madeleine's parents. I think that by talking about politics, it will put more in context what a role that played in the whole investigation and the whole media. So we know that Gerry Mccann was friends, I suppose he's still friends, with Gordon Brown's brother, and on the night of Maddie's disappearance, he actually called Brown's brother, and in turn, his brother asked Gordon Brown for assistance with the case and with the investigation. Later on, 3 British prime ministers came out publicly in support to Madeleine's parents, and those were Gordon Brown, who I believe at the time of Maddie's disappearance he was a chancellor. I do apologize if I'm mistaken. Then Theresa May, who used to be a prime minister, and David Cameron. Now, at first, David Cameron, he refused to get involved in the case and to meet with the parents. However, he was a friend of the Chipping Norton set, of Rebecca Brooks as well, who at the time was an editor for The Sun, and she was campaigning alongside Maddie's parents for the Met to take Maddie's case. Now, it's worth mentioning that as soon as Brooks and The Sun got involved, David Cameron accepted to support the case. For those of you who are not familiar with Chipping Norton set, this is a group of political and show business acquaintances who have homes near the market town of Chipping Norton in Oxfordshire, England. You need to pay attention to this one because this is going to be extremely useful later on in the video, when we will find out more how much of a play media and politics together have in this case. Everything will be revealed in the interim report, which was dated on the 10th of September 2007, which I will talk about towards the end of the video. So this is going to be a really long video because I'll actually be reading the whole interim report to you guys, but 100% I'm sure that it's going to be worth watching. Now I would like to give my special thanks to the Hide the Hoe Controversy of Madeleine Mccann website owner, who have been following this investigation since the beginning, and has worked really hard to keep us all updated with the latest information. If you want to check out the website, I'll leave the link in the description below. Now I can say I have finally read the PJ files, and also I did a bit of research around this, and I want to talk to you about the witness statements, TAPA 7, and also Mrs. Pamela Fenn's statement. I will go with you through the timeline of the days before Madeleine's disappearance, but I will start from Tuesday up to Thursday. Let's go to Tuesday evening. Tuesday evening, it all started to become a bit strange. They all went to the tapas except Russell, who stayed in his apartment because his daughter has been sick. And according to the quiz mistress who supervised the trivia quiz from about 9 in the evening, no one left the table and she did not see Kate during that time, nor does she remember seeing David Payne. So was Russell, Kate and David Payne missing? At 10:16 p.m. Kate starts to receive a lot of phone calls until 10:27 p.m. supposedly at the apartment. As they say, they all left their phones in the apartment when they went to the restaurant. I find even this really strange. It's really odd, because why would you leave your phones in the apartments when you know that you leave your children alone sleeping whilst you dine out? I mean, if there is an emergency, shouldn't someone be able to contact you? Is it not safer to keep your phones with you? This seems just a bit odd. Why would you leave your phone home? Shortly after, Mrs. Fenn from the apartment above the McCanns, she claims to have heard crying, which was getting stronger, and some shouting which assembled to "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and they seem to have come from a toddler for about an hour and a quarter until 11:45. It's always presumed that the toddler was Madeleine. We also know that Rachel claims to have bathed Jane Tanner's older daughter in their apartment. But if Rachel bathed Jane Tanner's daughter, then where was Jane? I mean, surely her mother would have bathed her own daughter. Their apartment was also directly next door to the Mccanns, and both were beneath Mrs. Fenn. She heard patio's doors close, and then Madeleine stopped crying. Was someone using the patio door to get in or to leave? If this was the night when they said that Emily was crying and Madeleine came into their room. Now let's go to the next day, which is Wednesday morning. Very early in the morning, at around 7 a.m, Kate made 3 calls to her friend in England, Amanda, who is married to a pathologist. Shortly after, around 8 a.m, Gerry starts receiving the first of 14 text messages. It was raining on Wednesday, so the tennis was cancelled. There was no tennis that day. Diana Webster went to breakfast at the Millennium, and Jane stayed at the apartment. Diane recalls seeing the Mccanns at the Millennium, even though they were saying they didn't go for breakfast. So how would she recall seeing them if they said they didn't go for breakfast? This is another thing which doesn't add up. And it only starts getting stranger and stranger. At some point in the morning, the cleaners were let in the Mccanns' apartment, and the Mccanns left via the balcony door. As the cleaner was making the bed, she noticed that in the Mccanns' bedroom there was a baby cot. However, Gerry and Kate, they both denied this. I mean, having toddlers, having kids, having a cot is not such a big deal, is it? Especially when you are on holiday. Then why would Kate and Gerry deny this? What was the big deal about a cot? I mean, surely a cot is just a normal thing when you have kids and when you have toddlers. Around lunchtime, Kate went for a jog wearing her pink trainers. She was with Matthew, and apparently she was bitten by a dog, causing blood on her leg. Now let's skip to Wednesday evening now. Jess Wilkins was at the tapas when Gerry arrived with Russell. So where was Jane? Was she with Kate? Did something happen to Madeleine and she went to Kate to give her support? Was Kate grieved? In that night, the tapas group, they stayed very late at the restaurant, and the waiters wanted to leave at midnight, but the group stayed there until approximately 1 in the morning. Now this whole group, they have children, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't stay until 1 in the morning somewhere and leaving your kids alone. Unless, was there something really important that they had to talk about? Now, according to Kate and Gerry, they left around 11 in the night. Gerry says that he left first, and when Kate came back in the apartment, Gerry was already in bed. Now, Gerry says that Kate spent a few moments in bed, and being disturbed by his snoring, she actually left to go sleep in the children's room. However, if one would look at the bed, there is no sign that someone was sleeping in. Now, on the other hand, Kate claims that she was quite annoyed with Gerry, and she wasn't even sure if he knew that she would be asleep in the kids' room on Thursday morning. Apparently, they woke up around 7 a.m. and Madeleine came to them, and according to May the 4th statements, she asked why they hadn't come when the twins were crying. However, in Gerry's May the 10th statement, he changed it to Madeleine crying, and that remains the version to this day. So we still don't know, were the twins crying or was it Madeleine crying? I mean, they need to make up their mind. What is really interesting to note is that Kate claims she wouldn't have thought any more about the comment, but once Madeleine was missing, she recalled it and thought it would be important. But if it was on a Wednesday night and Madeleine would go to her parents on Thursday morning to ask what happened, I mean, surely when they give the statements, it's still fresh in their memory and they should be able to remember. So I can't understand, how could she not remember? What's more strange is that she did tell Jane and Fiona on Thursday night before Maddie disappeared. If, as she claimed, she told them on Thursday night, then surely she would have told them the same version she told the PJ on May the 4th, that it was the twins that were crying. Then why did Jane and Fiona both claim that she told them the version that Madeleine was crying, which was the corrected version, and this came 6 days later to the previous version? It seems like you are reading a book which is not quite finished yet, and the author is still revising the last details, the few bits and pieces, so that everything comes together. Now, the following few hours are very important, and keep in mind that these statements, they were taken from them the next day after Maddie's disappearance, so everything should have been very fresh in their memory. Upon leaving the apartment, Kate said that they all left through the front door. Now, Gerry claims that Kate and the kids left through the patio doors. As it turns out, he left Kate to go down the steep steps with her 3 children so he could lock the doors on an empty apartment. That doesn't make sense. They say they dropped off the twins at the Tapas Crochet, and Gerry took Madeleine to the kids club Crochet. At the reception, while Kate played tennis at 9:15 in the morning, and his tennis followed at 11:15 in the morning. The following hours are very difficult to explain, especially because there are so many discrepancies and contradictions, and quite possibly lies. So Rachel claims she sat with Kate by the pool waiting for Madeleine's mini tennis to finish, and when the children arrived at around 10:30 in the morning, she says Jane was there and took the photo of Maddie with the tennis balls. She also claims that this was the last time she saw Madeleine. Now, I'm wondering, was she trying to be helpful? Had something happened to Madeleine earlier and she saw blonde girls like Madeleine's hair color, and she confused Madeleine with the other girls? The police were very insistent to try and establish with her which court was Madeleine playing in. The tennis court that she identified was the incorrect one according to the tennis records. Now, Jane and Russell, they claim to have been at the mini tennis group, which was not Madeleine's group, but it was called the Sharks, and it was the same age group. They both remember speaking to Nigel. He had a camera and they were talking about how difficult it is for people to take a photo of children without being misinterpreted. Now, during that half an hour between 10:30 in the morning and 11 in the morning, Jane left and went to the beach, where she met Fiona and David on the way back from windsurfing. Both of them were quite cold and they were heading to their apartment to change. Jane got to the beach in time to catch her older daughter, which was 3 months younger than Madeleine and is in the same group as Madeleine, getting ready to go back to the crochet after the mini sale. She took pictures of her daughter, however, there was no mention of Madeleine. Jane's statement says that Russell went to the beach with her. Although Rachel says that she was at mini tennis on Thursday, there is no mention of her by Russell or Jane. And Bridget O'Donnell says in an interview with The Guardian that she saw the children but does not mention Madeleine. She also says that Kate and Gerry spent time talking with the tennis coach. Fiona now claims to have been with her by the pool, and they both went to pick up Fiona's youngest daughter and Madeleine. Kate signed Madeleine out from the crochet at 12:25. Now, Kate says in her statement that she went back to the apartment first and then prepared lunch for the children. But Gerry says that it was him who went to pick up Madeleine, and he remembers that because he took the shortcut. Now, Kate says that she went back to the crochet to see if Gerry had picked up the twins. Neither of them appeared to know, and Catriona, who was the nanny, doesn't remember who picked up and dropped off Madeleine on Thursday. This is very interesting because the police timeline diagram show that even though Kate and Gerry say the twins were in the crèche, there is no record whatsoever that they attended on that day. Rachel claims that the last time she saw Madeleine was during mini tennis. Was that mini tennis on Thursday? Or was she mistaken and Madeleine didn't play? Or was it on Tuesday when Madeleine's group played? In which case the last time she saw Madeleine would have been on a Tuesday. Either way, Rachel did not see Madeleine by the pool when they were playing tennis, as she says the last time she saw Madeleine was when she played tennis. If that was the case, is it true that Jane and Rachel were playing tennis and Maddie wasn't there for the last picture? Is Rachel lying about the last time she saw Madeleine? Jane says she saw Madeleine. Now Rachel says she didn't see Madeleine. Are they both lying about being there? Is it possible that they were both trying to be helpful but they got the story completely wrong? Was possibly not everyone on the same page with how the story should go? The McCanns claim that they took the twins back at the crèche at around 2:40 in the afternoon and dropped Madeleine off at around 2:50 in the afternoon. So then that begs the question, why did Fiona say that she had the twins in the afternoon? Were the twins really at the crèche, or this is another made up story to match the last picture? Now let's go to Thursday afternoon. During the afternoon, Kate and Gerry managed to book a tennis court where they played before Gerry carried on playing with one of the other guests. Kate went for a jog and passed the T7, who were down on the beach at the Paraíso. The owner, Miguel Matias, claims to have seen Madeleine dancing with her daddy at the restaurant and passed the footage to the PJ. However, the footage confirms Madeleine was not there, so probably the owner was mistaken and he possibly confused the other children with Madeleine. And this only confirms the possibility that it's more likely more of the witnesses, they made the same mistake of confusing the children with Madeleine. Now we are on the same day for high tea. Gerry said he's been at high tea while the children were there, and Kate arrived after her jog at approximately 5:30 in the afternoon. Catriona, the nanny, on the other hand, claims Gerry wasn't there and he was playing tennis, which is really strange, and besides, who would have told her that and when? Catriona was invited to the McCann's home during November prior to derogatory statements and may have learned details, and she became confused. Strangely enough, she also remembers details such as Kate wearing a jogging outfit. She either heard details and made her confused, or what if she was indeed paid by the McCanns to stick up to a story, to cover them? Kate was consistently claiming that Madeleine was really tired and she kept asking her mother to carry her at the apartment. The children were signed out at 5:30 in the afternoon. Kate then carried her back to the apartment, but Gerry claims they went to the patio doors and he let them in through the back. So remember the patio doors with the steep steps? So if really Kate has been carrying Madeleine, how did she manage the twins as well on her own without Gerry's help, climbing the steep steps at the rear of the apartment? Now this was a few hours before Madeleine supposedly disappeared, and yet Kate claims she went through the front doors. So Gerry claims they went through the back doors, the patio doors, and Kate claims they went through the front doors. I mean, surely a few hours before your child's disappearance you would precisely remember which door you used. Now even the following morning when they gave their statements, they still couldn't decide which doors they used. Thursday evening, the night of Maddie's disappearance. Now there are so many inconsistencies about the next few hours. I'm really hoping that you guys will not be confused. Now Russell says that Kate and the kids were there during the men's tennis. Kate says that she went back to the apartment and took a shower and a bath. She also says she was in a towel when David Payne stopped by to check on her and the children, being sent by Gerry, and this was at around 6:30 p.m. It seems that Gerry asked David to pass on a message to Kate to see if she needs any help to take the children to the recreation area. But if Gerry wanted to know if Kate needs help with the children. Wouldn't he go himself to ask? Why would he send his friend to ask? Now we talk about Mrs. Fenn, and according to an interview with Gonzalo Amaral, she did see David Payne on the balcony at around 7 p.m. Gerry had gotten to tennis at 6 p.m. The others have arrived a while later from the Paraíso restaurant. David Payne was back at his apartment at around 7:10 in the evening. The police asked Fiona, and they finally had her agree that she had no idea where David Payne was between 6 and 7. Fiona went out jogging while the children were bathing, and just before it was time to go to the tapas, which made them a little late. Gerry and Kate and Rachel and Matthew Oldfield arrived first. Jane, separate from Russell, she arrived a bit later. Now, during dinner, the waiters claimed that only the men ever got up from the table, and no one really knew why they left the table until after the disappearance, when they presumed they left the table to check on the children. Mrs. Fenn's statement was taken in Praia da Luz on the 20th of August 2007, the night before Maddie disappeared, when she was at home alone. At approximately 10:30 in the evening, she heard a child cry, according to her statement, and the crying seemed to be that of a young child. Apart from the crying, which continued for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes, which got louder and louder and more expressive, the child started then shouting, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." The witness had no doubt that the noise came from the Mccann's apartment. At around 23:45, 1 hour and 15 minutes after the crying began, she heard the parents get in. She did not see them, but she heard the patio doors open. Now, Mrs. Fenn was quite worried about the crying because it's been going on and on for more than an hour, and it was only getting worse and worse, which again begs the question, were the parents getting in the apartment through the patio doors, or someone was leaving the apartment and Maddie's gone quiet suddenly? The same night, Mrs. Fenn contacted her friend Edna Glynn, who also lives in Praia da Luz, after 11 in the night, telling her about the situation, who was not surprised at the child's crying. During the day, nothing unusual happened, until almost around 10:30 in the evening, when, being alone again, she heard the hysterical shouts from a female person calling out, "We have let her down," which she repeated several times, quite upset. "We have let her down." Mrs. Fenn then saw it was Madeleine's mother who was the one shouting and screaming. When leaning over the terrace, after having seen the mother, Mrs. Fenn, she in fact asked Kate's husband Gerry what was happening, to which Gerry replied, "A girl has been abducted." So no, Madeleine, my daughter, was abducted. No, it was a girl has been abducted. So all it was to Gerry was that a little girl has been abducted. Okay guys, now is the time for the coffee and the long read. Are you guys ready? I'm now going to read the interim report after the phone call of Maddie's disappearance was first made to the Portuguese police. This is a very long report, so please hear me out. For the attention of the Criminal Investigation Coordinator. At around midnight on the 3rd of May 2007, through a phone connection between the GNR in Lagos and this police station, the disappearance of a child was communicated. We went on location in order to perform the necessary judiciary inspection. Faced with the fact that disappearance of a child, the investigation drew out the various possible scenarios. The child's parents, however, immediately attributed the fact the disappearance to the action of a third party defending the abduction. So straight from the beginning, Kate and Gerry pushed ahead the abduction factor of it. While the abduction being one of the possible scenarios, the family's actions led into that direction by publicizing the fact in a manner that had never been seen before. In fact, on the very next day after Maddie's disappearance, English television stations opened their newscasts already advertising the child's disappearance, abduction. The defense of this scenario was the truth of the facts under investigation for the media. Time went by and that scenario was not confirmed as its presuppositions were not fulfilled. No ransom was ever demanded in exchange for information or for the child itself. Nevertheless, and considering the deposition by one of the friends, Jane Tanner, we could be looking at said scenario. Meanwhile, diligences continued in order to collect all kinds of information, and always with the purpose of working all scenarios that were still a possibility. The information that was initially collected with family and friends was uncertain and had been worked upon by the group in order to strengthen the version that had been presented and defended. And this is exactly what the interim report says. According to the version of the parents and of the whole group, they went out to dine and all of them left their children asleep in their apartments. The group members held a meeting during which they agreed on certain rules that sustained the version of continuous checking of the children while they dined. The process includes a manuscript by one of the group members that supports this thesis. These principles, which in this manner have been shared by the entire group, have the effect that for the English public opinion, the whole group is always cleared, rendering any abnormal event that might last longer than 30 minutes impossible, given the fact that they all agreed that was the time lapse in which the children were checked. No one knows for sure. No one has got any proof whatsoever that they did indeed check on the children, apart from a manuscript which could have been written on the same night just so they are covered as a group. The version that one of the group went to the apartment to check that everything was well every 15 or 30 minutes collapses. Total incoherence results from the group's statements, which makes it very easy to verify that everyone lies. We can verify that one of the group's elements, wishing to make the group's version about the checking more consistent, gives it a personal touch. The checks on the children were carried out in two manners. One, just to listen if anyone was crying, and in case of silence, all was well. And the other one by actually checking. Oh my god. Only by reading this, it's so hard to believe. This seemed like silly arrangement, so to speak, about checking on someone who is your child. On his turn to check on the children, one of the group's elements, Matthew, did just that, as he even told Kate that all was well, with no further explanation. Kate recalls this detail. But the truth is that this information leads the investigation to wander about, to waste time and resources. It is not understandable that this information is given at the beginning and sustained throughout time, despite the fact that anyone can verify the damage that results from it for the investigation. After all this time, the same version is upheld, as well as the public insistent statement that what they want most is to assist the investigation. The investigation was forced to assume information was incorrect and move forward. This only results in If someone checked on the children and all was well, the disappearance took place between 9:30 and 10 p.m. If the information wouldn't be counting on said witness, then the disappearance would have taken place between 9 and 10 p.m., widening the time period, presuming that the father indeed speaks the truth. But there is another question about timing, which is the last time that the child was seen outside of the group by someone who can actually prove that moment was at around 5:35 p.m. when the parents went to pick her up at the crèche, which may widen the time lapse between the disappearance and the alert into 4 hours. So 4 hours. Continuing to analyze the information that was offered, we have one of the group's members, Jane Tanner, becoming a supposedly important witness due to what she told us. She saw someone crossing the street at dinner from the location of the disappearance into the direction of Robert Murat's house. This information directed and occupied the investigators' work for a long time. This may be an example of how information that is not correct may not only delay but may have led to losing the little girl. By insisting on the information, scenarios were outlined which failed to match said information with reality, but still long and intense work was carried out on that arguido. In the same manner, we can verify the discrepancy about the subjects in statements from Gerald and Jane, how they passed each other at only 2 or 3 meters distance, yet failed to see each other. Can they position themselves in such a reduced space and both fail to see the same person walking by? More correctly, one sees and the other doesn't. Even the location where they supposedly crossed ways is not very well defined by both. The moment chosen by witness Jane to make her statement about what she had seen and the explanation for that moment is unreal, which is to say, it is not easy to accept that any witness from the group, upon seeing someone with the child getting away from the Mccanns, hadn't immediately acted or spoken, being certain that the description of the person was being consecutively altered, perfected. Therefore, there isn't much credibility in this deposition. Until now, we have been analyzing small distortions in the information that was initially transmitted, small alterations of the truth taking place, thus relating them with the investigation and with the direction it forced it into. The investigation didn't follow the command or the will of anyone. The family and group information that is fundamental in this type of crime was always distorted. It was as if it's true that she disappeared, it was as if Kate and Gerry, they just didn't want them to find her. But on the other hand, obviously, if they did indeed do something to Maddie, they would try everything to cover it up. The fact that the individuals were foreigners prevented until now that direct information about the persons of the group could be collected. The parents of the minor live in a society, the British, known through the press as being very demanding. The profession of both parents, medicine, completed by the fact that the father is a surgeon, increases this degree of demand and consequent tiredness. In a society that is identified internationally and in the media as being very demanding and with many and tight rules to establish those standards of existency, it makes it obligatory that people rest, make a professional retreat, take their holidays. Gerry Mccann is a cardiovascular surgeon. In many moments of his professional career, he had to make decisions in thousandths of a second, which gives him a certain coldness and certainly provokes an increased tiredness. The enjoyment of a period of holidays supposes a rest through non-ordinary practices and freedom and exemption from schedules. Social life in such a holiday, in the present case, was facilitated by the fact that they traveled as a group. But that social life may, in a certain way, be touched by the presence and constant needs of accompanying the minors. This fact and need was clear in the deliverance of the children to the respective child centers and creches, according to their ages. The holiday time was not shared between parents and children. The 3rd of May 2007 had gone by until around dinner time in a natural way, according to the adopted style. After fetching the children from the nursery and the crèche, they went to the apartment shortly after 5:35 in the afternoon. But Kate went running for half an hour on the beach and then went to the apartment, and Gerald went to play tennis. While the tennis match was taking place, another member of the group who had been in touch with Kate in the apartment for a period of time that took between 30 seconds, according to Kate, and 30 minutes, according to Gerald, showed up. In 30 seconds, we may ask if everything is well and if anything is needed, little more. In 30 minutes, we can go ahead and do something that is requested from us. They put the minors to sleep at around 7:30 in the evening. Remained at home until around 8:30 in the evening, going to the tapas restaurant afterwards. They were the first to arrive out of the group. After the entire group was at the table and when the meal started, the checks on the children began, in a way that is neither coherent nor acceptable. It could not be confirmed, and only the group defends it in sort of a unique version. Although they say in their statements that their strategic position in the tapas restaurant allowed them, the Mccanns, to see the apartment where they'd left their underage children asleep, the examination of the spot reveals its faults. It must be noted also that according to the investigation, everything points to their position at the table being with their backs to the apartment. On that night, around 10:05 in the evening, according to her version, it was Kate that went to the apartment to check the children, coinciding with the end of dinner, at which she had arrived at around 8:30 in the evening. So, she returned to the apartment about 1.5 hours later, the time lapse during which she didn't see her children. It took her around 10 minutes. She then showed up at the restaurant and told the remaining members about the disappearance of her daughter Madeleine. It must be noted that Kate knew that, going back to the restaurant as she did, she would leave the twins, Emily and Sean, in the same dangerous situation. It is not understandable why she didn't use the mobile phone to call Gerald or the group, or even simpler, that she didn't walk out on the balcony from where she could perfectly be heard by the members of the group. The authorities, the GNR, were alerted around 22:40, and the alerted population started the searches for the child. The divulgation of the fact wasn't kept within the authorities and the normal channels. On the following day, British and Portuguese televisions were already broadcasting the news. However, the group had been reunited. The search was circumscribed to the interior of the apartment. Even before any search by the authorities in the surroundings started, the news about the possible abduction was already running along. By reasons, they said, of counseling and support, the parents asked for the presence of a priest at around 2 or 3 o'clock on the 4th of May. From the informal depositions they gave during the judiciary inspection on location, the information immediately induced the thesis of abduction. Simple things became disinformation. The question of the open or closed window, the shutter was up or down, the open balcony door, the front door merely shut or locked by a key. Despite everything, until a certain time in the investigation, the family sustained and fed the theory of abduction. However, on a date that cannot be precise, it was suggested by the family that a person should be consulted that could eventually indicate the probable location of little Madeleine's cadaver. This fact became inexplicable to the members of the investigation, given the fact that it was the members of the family themselves who raised the hypothesis little Mad is dead. Nevertheless, for the media, they continued and continue to declare their hope of finding their daughter alive. The first time that the hypothesis of the little girl's death was raised, it was effectively suggested by the Mccann couple. While keeping several investigation lines open, it was decided to advance in the direction of a new inspection of the spot where the girl disappeared. The inspection technique is commonly used in the United Kingdom and consists of the use of especially trained dogs. Naturally, the dog's smelling sense is the sense at use. In the case of this sense, the difference between the human and the dog is of 5 million cells to 200 million cells. It must be highlighted that the use to this kind of inspection is frequent in the UK and the success rate is of 100%. One of the dogs is trained to detect cadaver odor and the other to identify traces of human blood. We now stress that the location of the cadaver odors signifies that physically the body is not on the place marked by the dog, but certainly it has been there as long as the dog signals it. As can be read in the process files, in this inquiry, the dogs inspected the following locations and items with the results described below. All the inspections were recorded in sound and image and were directed by our British colleagues that accompanied the dogs. Among the great number of items and locations that were inspected, the dogs marked the following locations and items. Apartment 5A, Ocean Club Resort, the place from where the child disappeared. Cadaver odor detection dog. Master bedroom. In a corner. By the wardrobe. Living room. Behind the sofa. By the side window. Six spots the dog detected. Now the blood dog. Living room behind the sofa. By the side window, exactly the same spot that has been signaled by the cadaver dog. Then the front garden of apartment 5A. Then the cadaver odor detection dog detected one of the flower beds. The dog handler commented on the lightness of the odor. Apartments where the rest of the group were staying, nothing was detected by the dogs. Mccann's present residence at the time, nothing was detected in the house by any of the dogs. In Praia da Luz village, nothing was detected by any of the dogs. Mccann's family clothes and belongings. Cadaver odor detection dog. 2 pieces of clothing belonging to Kate Mccann. 1 piece of clothing belonging to Madeleine. Madeleine's soft toy. The cadaver odor was detected when the toy was still inside the residence, the Mccanns at that date. It was confirmed under out-of-the-house conditions. The vehicle that was used by the Mccann family. Cadaver odor detection dog. Marked the car key. Marked the inside of the car boot. Blood dog. Marked the car key. Marked the inside of the car boot. Car that was used by a family friend that was staying in the same resort on some of the same days. Nothing was detected by any of the dogs. All the cars that were used by Argito Robert Murat and the people that are close to him. Nothing has been detected by any of the dogs. In a total of 10 cars, the cadaver dog and the blood dog only marked the car of the Mccann family, rented on the 27th of May. The locations and items that were marked and signaled by the blood dog are being subject to forensic exams, part of which are already concluded. Not less relevant is the refinement of the results that points towards Madeleine's DNA as being present in apartment 5A, behind the sofa, a spot that was marked by the cadaver and the blood dog. In every place marked by the blood dog, the lab confirmed that DNA was present. The media attention that has been given to the case and the search for information by said media has led to an evolution in Madeleine's parents' statements. All the information that was made public has contributed to the rebuilding of the story, adapting it to eventual police questions and to attempts to justify the indicia and consequent evidence that is being collected. Let's see. The media suggested the possibility that the children could have been sedated to be kept asleep and allow the parents some rest. Distant in time, Kate's father, the grandfather of the child, Brian Healy, admits to the press that Kate could have administered some medication to the little girl, Calpol, to help the children, sleep, contrary to what his daughter Kate has been stating. Kate, through the PJ inspector that acted as liaison with the family, asked why samples weren't taken from the twins in order to test that hypothesis. She knew well enough at the time, more than 3 months later, that such an exam would be worthless. She went even further and said that we, the investigation, should verify that the abductor had sedated Madeleine in order to accomplish his action, and that he also had sedated the twins to consummate the act. However, she didn't say it at the right moment. What we certainly know is that the sedatives have timings to act and timings to be expelled that vary between 6 and 200 hours. The Mccann's medical knowledge is enough to know this, even if their professional activity never included performing toxicology exams. Now, I remember reading about the sedative thing, and I remember, if I remember well, the Portuguese police, they did want to take samples from the twins, but Kate and Gerry, they both refused. When the media informed that blood had been detected in the car and in the apartment, Kate and members of her family come to public with the simple excuse that it had been someone who had access to the apartment that had placed the evidence. Now they even admit it was the criminal investigation body that placed the false evidence, blood and cadaver odor, in the apartment and in the car. In an attempt to justify the blood, Kate went even further, informing on that occasion that Madeleine sometimes suffered nosebleeds. On the day that the house search was performed at the Mccann's residence, written papers were found in the master bedroom, as well as a Bible written in English. It was open on the page whose copies are annexed to these reports with the translation. Abduction is a situation with which, unfortunately, in the United Kingdom, most of the public opinion is acquainted due to the rate of this kind of crime. Intelligent people should have a minimum of knowledge that publicity damages the investigation of an abduction crime and is especially threatening to the safety of the abducted person. They should wait for the decisions from the police authorities. There is strong evidence that the crime scene was altered and some furniture was moved around. Those changes are indications of simulation. On the night that little Madeleine disappeared, the family was contacted by a lady that identified herself with documents that credited her as somebody that worked with minors in the United Kingdom. She identified herself with documents, certifications that are used in the UK with hospitals and childcare centers. She offered her help in whatever was needed. No doubt this person could have been of valuable help, even about procedures, but she was dismissed. From everything that was established, the facts point in the direction that the death of Madeleine Mccann occurred on the night of May the 3rd, 2007, inside apartment 5A at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, which was occupied by the Mccann couple and by their 3 children. There is a coincidence between the marking of cadaver odor and blood, according to the partial lab report that has been annexed to the process files. Said marking occurred behind the living room sofa, cadaver odor, blood, DNA, which indubitably proves that said piece of furniture was pushed back by someone after the death of Madeleine was verified. Because of the few traces that were recovered on location and subject to examination, it has to be admitted as a strong hypothesis that it was subject to a washing at a moment following the occurrence of death. In the same manner, the toy that was used by the dead child, which was found at the top of the bed where she usually slept, reveals that someone put it there at a moment posterior to death, given the fact that the bed doesn't have any cadaver odor. So after the death, the sofa was moved, the soft toy was moved. This is to say, an intentional modification took place in order to simulate a picture that doesn't match reality, in an attempt to take advantage for the simulation of an abduction. It must be added that the cadaver odor detection dog strongly signaled the bedroom where the Mccann couple slept, which may indicate the moving of the corpse from the actual death spot, living room, into a non-visible part of said bedroom. Furthermore, a strong marking of cadaver odor was made on Kate Mccann's clothes, which may indicate that she was in touch with the cadaver. There was also a strong marking of cadaver odor in the car that was used by the Mccann couple since the 27th of May 2007, which, in conjugation with the blood dog's marking and based on the forensics that are included in the process files, which indicate the presence of Madeleine Mccann's DNA in the car boot, led towards not excluding a strong hypothesis that this vehicle may have possibly been used to move the cadaver 24 days after her death. The indication from the cadaver odor detection dog, as well as from the blood detection dog, on the key of the aforementioned vehicle, where the lab would confirm the existence of Gerry Mccann's DNA, cannot be dismissed. This last signaling was obtained by the dogs after the key was put far away from the vehicle in a non-visible location. From everything that is exposed, the process file results in the following. The minor, Madeleine Mccann, died in apartment 5A at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz on the night of the 3rd of May 2007. A simulation of an abduction took place. In order to render the child's death impossible before 10 o'clock in the evening, a situation of checking of the Mccann couple's children while they slept was made up. Kate Mccann and Gerry Mccann are involved in the concealment of the cadaver of their daughter, Madeleine Mccann. At this moment, there seems to be no strong indication that the child's death was not the result of a tragic accident yet. From what has been established up to now, everything indicates that the Mccann couple, in self-defense, doesn't want to deliver the cadaver immediately and voluntarily, and there is a strong possibility that it was moved from the initial place of deposition. This situation may raise questions concerning the circumstances in which the death of the child took place. Therefore, we suggest that the case files are sent to the Republic's prosecutor in the Lagos Legal District for a possible new questioning of the Argidos Kate and Gerry Mccann, an evaluation of the measure of restraint to be applied in this case. During the house search at the Mccann couple's residence, a diary-style manuscript was found, already photocopied, possibly authored by Kate Mccann, admitting that it may contain information that may help to reach the material truth of facts. We propose that the photocopies of said document are presented to the illustrious judge for the purpose of its apprehension, if legal, its translation and eventual collection of information to be included in the process files as necessary for the investigation. At this date, I subject the case files to your appreciation for you to determine whatever you may see as convenient. And this is the interim report. Now you can draw the conclusions for yourself. From what I understand, it's a cover-up. It truly is a cover-up. Today I want to talk to you about what was found in Mccann's apartment 5A. Let's start with this. Scent of cadaverine is a compound produced by a decomposing human body beginning 90 minutes after death. Eddie, the cadaver dog, and Kila, the blood dog, were brought in. The dog alerted to Madeleine's decomposing body in the wardrobe of 5A, Kate's clothes, behind the sofa, in the Renault, and on the cuddle cat which belonged to Madeleine. The dogs alerted to a source of blood behind the sofa and no blood identified from analysis. They alerted to the tiles and skirting behind the sofa. The dogs were specifically trained to detect human remains and human blood. As part of their training, they were trained using human bones. All the witness statements from TAPA 7, Kate and Gerry's statements, which have humongous discrepancies and lies. It's my opinion, Madeleine might have died about 5:45 to 6 in the evening. She either fell or was pushed and fell down the stairs, banging her head. The apartment had marble floor. Probably she smashed her skull. Eddie the dog could smell cadaverine at the bottom of the stairs. I think they hid her behind the sofa, where, once again, Eddie the dog smelled cadaverine. And traces of blood have also been found, and we also know that there was a cleaning attempt made. Also, as mentioned in witness statements, which I talked about in the previous video, why would someone have a shower and a bath straight away after a shower? Presumably, this is what Kate did. I think she might have been trying to wash off the blood and any evidence. However, the dog could smell cadaverine on Kate's clothes as well. My theory is this. Hear me out. Madeleine might have been doing something wrong, something what a normal child does, which usually annoy the parents, and one of the parents snapped in anger and must have done something, intentionally or not, which hurt Madeleine to the point that she died. Now, they know they left their children alone on so many occasions, and they could have easily been accused of negligence. In a desperate attempt to avoid prison, they decided to get rid of Maddie's body. It is possible Kate, distressed, asked for Jane's help and the whole group. This group, from what I read, they are quite pervert in the sense of their bedroom preferences. I'm not gonna say the S word because it might hurt the video, so I'll just refer to it as bedroom preferences. I heard they might have been swingers, and the reason why they were traveling, and this might be one of the reasons why they decided to travel as part of a group. And it's quite possible that being scared they will damage their reputation, they helped Kate and Gerry get rid of the body, evidence, and come up with a cover story. Although everything got muddled up, so many inconsistencies in their statements that it makes your head spin. So many inconsistencies and so many lies is unbelievable. Check out my other video about the witness statements. Now, there is a reason the dog could smell blood outside of apartment 5A. It is possible Gerry was seen carrying Madeleine's body when a witness saw him carrying the girl. It's possible. We do know that someone saw him carrying Madeleine, and he was saying that he carried her because she was too tired. But what if indeed he was carrying her away from apartment 5A in the car, trying to get rid of her body? I think initially they probably buried her body in the near areas, but after quite some time, when Gerry with no reason traveled from US to Portugal, he actually went back for a good reason, to get rid of the body. The whole group was quite familiar with the beach, considering the fact they were jogging and visiting the beach every day when they were on holiday. And I'm really sad to say, but there's a high possibility that indeed Maddie's body was thrown in the sea. If I'm right, I don't think they'll ever be able to find it, which I really do hope I'm wrong. A group of people like Kate and Gerry and their friends, brilliant minds, could have come up with a perfect cover-up. That's the reason why Kate and Gerry straight away said Maddie was abducted. That's the reason why Kate and Gerry mentioned Madeleine not as missing but as dead, even before any official investigation suggested that. And they knew very well they would get away with it. They knew very well they would get away with it because of their political ties with Gordon Brown, with Theresa May, and David Cameron. Of course, highly respected politicians wouldn't want to get bad press from helping someone who covered up a death. He was even called by Gordon Brown on the night of Maddie's alleged disappearance, and he told Brown she was abducted. When he called the police the first time, he said she was abducted. These people, they were not even willing to think of an alternative. And this is why they kept injecting the media with the story of an abduction, so people would feel sympathetic. And there are so many references with notes Kate made about photo shoots with the media to show that they are walking with the twins and so on. And this was just a few days after Maddie's disappearance, and it goes on and on with how many appointments they had with the media, and they had to be in this certain place for this newspaper, for this photo shooting, so they had to behave in a certain way. Everything was strategically planned just so they get more and more media coverage. And not only that, but both Kate and Gerry agreed to give statements to the media only if there were no bad things mentioned about them. They needed to look like the worried and devastated parent. And the British media were controlled on what they could cover. Kate and Gerry are millionaires now, thanks to Madeleine's disappearance. Kate made a book presumably about her daughter, but all she talks about is herself. Heck, they've even been on Oprah. Who have you seen as a parent of missing children being on Oprah? And who have you seen as a parent of missing child to behave and draw as much media attention as they have? And not for their child, but to cash in at the expense of their child's disappearance. Now, let's go through what they found in apartment 5A, which is quite well hidden from the public eye. The Portuguese police intercalary report claimed that Madeleine died in the apartment. Do you remember in my previous video I was actually reading the interim report about this. Her parents hid her body and simulated an abduction. From official police files, the minor, Madeleine Mccann, died in the apartment 5A of the Ocean Club Resort on the night of May the 3rd, 2007. Kate Mccann and Gerry Mccann are involved in the occultation of the cadaver of their child. Scotland Yard believed at one point that she didn't leave that apartment alive. I've actually doing my research, I've actually came across an article which I read, and the article mentioned that Operation Grange, which was in charge of dealing with the investigation, they were in fact not allowed to investigate the parents. Now, the cadaver odor detection dog alerted in the master bedroom, the living room, behind the sofa, marked the car key, marked inside the car boot, front garden of apartment 5A, 2 pieces of clothing belonging to Kate Mccann, 1 piece of clothing belonging to Madeleine, and Maddie's soft toy. The blood dog alerted to the living room, behind the sofa, marked the car key, marked the inside of the car boot, same spots like the cadaver odor dog. Marking occurred behind the living room sofa, the cadaver odor blood DNA, which proves that said piece of furniture was pushed back by someone after the death of Madeleine Mccann was verified. Maddie's hair was found in the car boot. DNA was found. Why would Maddie's hair be found in the car boot? If they didn't take Maddie's body and put it in the car boot to get rid of it. That would be the only explanation, because you don't put your kid in the car boot to go for a trip. Let's be honest. Blood was also retrieved from the tires and was sent for forensic examination, confirming the dog's findings. So they did confirm the dog's findings, which makes them reliable dogs, even though Gerry said in an interview that they are not reliable at all. And he was like, in the interview, Sandra was taking the interview, and he was like saying, "Oh, ask the dog, Sandra." Like, he's so arrogant and so full of himself. It's unbelievable. Now, all of the DNA components match the corresponding components in the DNA profile of Madeleine Mccann. The components were found in the spot behind the sofa and the boot of the rental car. When asked about blood in another interview, Gerry stormed out of the room. He just didn't want to hear it anymore. He physically left. He took off his microphone, he threw his microphone and left the room, and Kate kept saying, "Calm down, sit back down," and then he just left, and she was trying to justify him leaving by saying to the interviewer, "Oh, he will calm down, he just needs a breath of fresh air." A neighbor living above McCann's apartment heard Maddie and the twins cry for quite some time from the night before Madeleine disappeared. They only stopped crying when Gerry came back from dining at the tapas. 15 out of 19 markers marked Maddie's DNA with the DNA samples found in the apartment and in the car. And dogs even found bodily fluids in the car, in the rental car. Now, Gerry and Kate are defending these findings by saying that they were not the only ones who rented the car. And obviously they are just trying to push all the evidence against them to, you know, and just to keep up with their theory of what happened and their cover-up story. And according to numerous reports, Portuguese officials believe the Mccanns may have sedated their daughter, and perhaps she died accidentally, and the British couple, both 39 and physicians, hid the body for weeks before disposing of it. The Portuguese police even offer Kate a deal. If she confesses to killing her daughter, she'd only get a sentence of no more than 2 years. Now, this is what she claims. And she says that after around 12 hours of interrogations, she was offered a plea bargain through her lawyer. And at the same time, whilst Gerry was interviewed, her sister, Kate's sister, Philomena, appeared on Sky News already talking about the plea bargain which was offered. In her book, Kate claims she was offered a plea bargain as well, but later, check this out, later her lawyer deemed it as a misunderstanding. See, when she lied, she was not in touch with her lawyer because she didn't know the Portuguese law. She should have been in touch with her lawyer because the lie was exposed. If I'm not mistaken, Portuguese law does not allow plea bargains. Even Kate's dad confirmed Kate would give the kids Calpol to help them sleep. However, Kate denied all of this. Of course she did. Many thanks for watching, and please don't forget to check my other videos about Madeleine Mccann's investigation. I also have a playlist which I'll be adding the link to in the description. Please let me know in the comments below what do you guys believe about all these theories and investigation and all this evidence, and what do you think that should be done in this case. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.